Right, well, good evening, everybody, and I think we're going to make a start. I'm David Guile. I'm one of the two co-directors of the Centre for Education, Engineering and Education, Engineering and Education. And John Mitchell, who's my fellow co-director. John's unwell because he was advertised as chairing, but I'm actually quite pleased that I get a chance to chair this particular session, because it's a different session for those of you who've been before, from how we've run previous conversations, which I will explain in a moment. But for people who haven't been before, I'm just going to explain how it runs anyway tonight. Okay. Do feel free. Okay. No problem at all. Okay. So when we set up the CEE a couple of years ago, one of the ideas was we'd hold a rolling series of what we referred to, and we've kept to this notion ever since, a conversation, so that people who are actually interested in some aspect of engineering, or engineering education, because it can be the both and in combination, could come and contribute. And we've had quite a few different themes. We've had people in the past who've tended to speak from different perspectives, and that was the idea. So it might be somebody from academia talking with somebody from the world of policy, or somebody from the field of engineering itself talking to somebody actually from an education, a professional engineering institute, and so forth. So we've always kind of been quite eclectic in how we've selected people who would contribute. But I suppose the main kind of recurring pattern has been that there tended to be presentations followed by questions from the audience. So that's how we've then got into the conversational part of the event. We're going to change that this evening, okay? We're changing it because we've tried to respond, even with all the previous sessions, even though I've kind of implied perhaps more uniformity than there actually is, because we've always kind of listened to the people we've invited to come and speak, and sometimes they said, oh, you know, I think I prefer to do this rather than that, or I'd really like to speak to the person I'm going to speak against, or, you know, before I actually do so. So we've always kind of created a little kind of community that talks to one another, and therefore Paula very effectively did that with the students. And one of the things that came back was everybody said, who's kindly contributing this evening, what we'd like to do is actually not make presentations, but actually kind of respond to some questions, both from me, because I'm going to facilitate, and also from yourselves. Okay, and I shall come back to that in a few moments' time. But what I want to do is just kind of start off by just really kind of setting the context for this event, which was called Learning Pathways in Engineering, Company-Centred and University-Centred Learning Journeys. Because I come from the education side of the divide, in the sense that I'm not part of the Faculty of Engineering, I'm not an engineer. I'm actually out of the field of education, but specifically professional and vocational education rather than sort of school-based education. And I've always been interested in how people both get to work, but also how they learn at work. So the learning journey for the two people who are here this evening who are actually at work is of interest to me, as it is the two people who are going to be on that journey through higher education prior to going to work. And it seems to me that's the rounded picture, and that's something that I think we've been trying to do within the CE. We've used this term, the idea of transitions, people moving between different contexts, different settings at different points in their kind of educational or subsequently their working life. Okay. But just without kind of repeating everything that's actually said on the little flyer, but all too often we felt when John, Paul and I talked about this, that pathways seem to be monopolised by policymakers telling us, well, this is what happens, you know, or potentially even representatives from companies say, this is what should happen, and people from universities saying, no, you're not there, or even further education colleges, because both obviously play an important part in the development of education, engineering education. You know, no, pay more attention to us. We know about what the student actually needs. And we kind of thought, well, actually, what's missing here is actually the voice of the student or the learner. Okay, why aren't we hearing from them about some of these really important issues that we're actually considering in the centre through our research and consultancy work, and also through the conversations? So that was the kind of thought that led to the event this evening. And what I'm going to do now is very briefly, but not stealing their thunder, okay, introduce the four people who've agreed to participate this evening. Then I'll explain how we're going to proceed, because there's a very active role for all of you, or as many of you who want to take up this active role. I can't force you to do it, but I'd encourage you to take up an active role, okay, in the course of the evening. So the idea was we'd have two people who were still actually in higher education. So on my right I have Anna and Chris, who are UCL engineering students, and they'll tell you about themselves in a few moments' time. Okay. And on my left I have Megan and Ryan, who work for as graduate engineers at Atkins. And those of you who don't know Atkins, well, you should by now. And if you don't know, you can find out about it later, okay? And the kind of work that Atkins does and the kind of work that Ryan and Megan do there, okay? So what's going to happen is I'm in a moment going to actually ask everybody the same question, which is basically, why did they choose engineering? And to get underway with why they chose engineering and how people respond. I'm not saying this to all of you, don't copy what the person that preceded you said, otherwise it's because you've got to give us your journey, okay, like this is what made me do it. Even if it's like, you know, I never thought I was going to be an engineer, feel free to say stuff like that if that's true. If that's your passion since you were 3, then feel free to say that as well. It's much better to get your authentic story told, okay? Because actually it feels better for you rather than trying to think, oh, I'll say this because it's what the audience wants to hear. That's not the way to do it. Definitely say what it feels like, why you want it, why engineering, okay? And so I'm going to have like a series of questions and facilitations of issues with all 4 people. But I don't want you to hold back and wait until they've finished speaking and responding to my questions before you ask things. What I'm encouraging you to do to make it a proper conversation is feel free to ask any point in time as we go along, okay? So obviously let somebody finish, but once they finish speaking, if you want to then say something to, say, Ryan or Megan, okay, and for which I might then say to Anna or Chris, hey, does that ring bells for you? Feel free to bring your question in at that point in time. We'll then have a nice kind of rolling kind of feel and flow to the evening, okay? And I think we'll all kind of enjoy it more and hopefully learn a lot more, because it's very exciting, I think, starting with the idea of asking students why they chose to do something. Okay? And so that you know, I'm not just saying this, the first question I ask, just because it's this evening, whenever I go to interview anybody for my own research, the first question I always ask them is, why did they choose to do what they're doing? And sometimes they tell me, I've been forced into it with my, with my company closed down or whatever. But most of the time they don't. They say, you know, I actually always wanted to do this. It just took a long time to get here, okay? Or I never realised this is what I want to do. And then you get a much richer and more interesting and intriguing kind of understanding of actually how people learn through work and how they draw on the education that they've had prior to work in whatever form it's taken. Okay, at whatever level people had before they left formal education and entered the workforce. So on that note, okay, I'm going to pause. So introduce, just to remind people, I have Anna and Chris from UCL, and I have Megan and Ryan from Atkins. Okay. So the first question, and I've told them all this some months ago, so they know what's coming as the first question, is why did you choose engineering? So Anna, you're next to me, so why did you choose engineering?
Well, I chose engineering because I studied computer science in high school. So I started studying computer science 6 years ago. But I wasn't very good at it. I was good at maths though, so I already had in mind that I want to choose a career in engineering. And after about 2 years of practice, I actually become a lot better in computer science. Well, programming, that's what I studied in high school. So I chose computer science engineering at UCL. Yeah.
Great, okay. We're going to come back to the UCL bit in a moment. Chris, why did you choose engineering?
So I was actually really interested in chemistry, and I was thinking about studying chemistry when I was in sixth form. But after a few open days, I decided I didn't want to do pure science. And I was actually lucky enough to go and spend a week on an oil refinery in Wales, and I spent the whole week with a process engineer, and since then I've just been persuaded to study engineering, and that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. Can I get the two of you to start with the educational bit of the picture, then we'll come on to Atkins in a moment. So, okay, educationally, so we've got a little bit of comparison. What did you study that led you to think I'm going to take engineering as my career?
At kind of A-level standard, I really liked maths and physics, so those were two of the A-levels I took. But I didn't want to do a theoretical degree, I wanted to be able to apply those principles in a kind of real life situation. so engineering was the obvious choice. I went to a few different open days and kind of looked more at the broader engineering subjects, so either engineering where you then specialise later on, or the type of engineering that I ended up doing, which was a combined course covering two different disciplines, because I thought that gave me I wanted the broader experience rather than kind of narrowing my understanding.
I mean, for me personally, it was a fact that actually my grandfather was a very successful person and didn't actually end up being an engineer, but being actually HR director, but started as an engineer. And he went to university at 40, and I thought, wow, you know, that's pretty impressive if he can do that. And I thought that inspired me to just go further in the education. But actually from GCSE, I didn't really know what to do to start with, because I just didn't have a real clear path. But I was really into cycling. I was a bike mechanic and things like that, so I was quite a hands-on type of guy with actually mechanical devices. And I went to do my A-levels, and I picked A-level engineering. It first came out, and it was first year was mechanical, second year was electrical. It was great. I actually fell in love with it, to be fair. And from there I thought, what do I go on to do next? Do I, do a degree? Do I go and do an apprenticeship? What did I really want to do? And actually it's that A-level that kind of drew me, but it was more, I had one lecturer who actually I felt made me fall in love with it even more, in terms of applying what I knew further to actually create something, fixing problems. I think more my mindset in that. If I can solve it, and it just gave me some a good benefit out of it. So that was it for me personally. Okay.
So one thing I just want to pick up, you're the first person, Ryan, to actually refer to somebody in the family. So this question is really to the other three of you. Were there any kind of family or friends influences, or was it really, as you described it to us, effectively through the subject and actually the school kind of contribution, and that's what kind of led you into engineering?
Mine was quite family based, so I have an engineer in every generation, and actually my oldest brother studied the same course that I'm studying. So his persuasion was quite heavily influenced into my decision as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the same. My dad is an engineer and my mom is a programmer. So yeah, it had.
Does a family influence you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same for me as well.
Well, it's not uncommon. If we'd had 4 medics here, I guarantee you, probably 3 of them, if not 4 of them, would have actually ended up saying, somebody in the family, the immediate family or the extended family. There is this whole family kind of tradition that actually does kind of kick back and play out. But the key question is, though, are you taking different kinds of pathways with your engineering interests? I guess you're not a little bit, because the programming is quite close to the computer science, Anna, or do you think you are going to move in a different direction from, say, your mother?
I'm not sure. No, I mean, yeah, she had influence on me because she always told me what she does at her job. So, yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, apart from my brother, I'm a different. So my granddad was a mechanical engineer in the RAF, and my dad's a building services engineer. So process engineering was quite different to both of those paths. So.
For me, my dad's an acoustic engineer, but he went to uni that bit later, so kind of had a different career path in a different industry.
Right.
I think it was more him telling me what engineering is actually like, I suppose, rather than anything else.
I think that's one of the things that we've sometimes, I'm going to have a different time, by the way, just kind of extrapolate the odd little issue just to hopefully offer kind of different angles of engagement with what everybody's saying. That, but one of the things we often find is, and actually there's a report that John Mitchell and I have kind of coordinated with other colleagues that's looking at the future of engineering education. One of the issues is about what is engineering these days, okay, and how to escape the hard hat image, which is kind of prevalent everywhere. And what you kind of hear, I hear anyway, certainly in the 4 kind of observations this evening, is that nobody's come at it in that kind of way. They've actually come at I'm going to find this thing, even if there's a family connection. There's an interesting journey to go on, and we often forget that actually it's when you make a choice, there is actually something you've been doing to help you make that choice. There's an exploration. Paul.
You picked up on the family thing, which is interesting, because suddenly out of the box came all these family connections. The other thing I heard you all say was hands-on, which is sort of loose language for practical work. And so, Chris, of all the hours that you spent studying A-level, the thing that stuck in your mind was your week as a process engineer, because you actually got to do things and practical work. And you've all said in your own way that, academic studies all fine and you're all obviously very good at it, but what stimulated your career choice was the ability to be operational. I think hands-on, in some ways, sort of undersells it. It's more the ability to interact and to actually do something, as opposed to just reading about it in the abstract.
Of course, I mean, I think that applies to nearly everything. I mean, even if it wasn't engineering or something, if you see something in real life, you're taken by it, you know, what you're passionate about. I mean, the first day I went on site, I actually saw a massive boiler, you know, it doesn't sound pretty great, but when you go from a drawing to see it, to actually see it in real life, you get a great appreciation for it, and you think, wow, that's pretty good, cool stuff, you know. And it draws home, you know, it draws back actually to being there, doing something, getting appreciation for it. But I think on the starting of it, I used to work at a bike shop, and it was the simple things of actually like the bottom bracket wasn't working properly, and we couldn't get one to fit in time. So they've got a Coke can, and just a little shim around it because we couldn't get one to fit. It's that simple little thing, which actually was pretty simple, and it goes on from there. And it was a case of then the A level was very hands-on. There was a lot of theoretical, but it was actually very hands-on A level in engineering. And I think it was a mixture of both mechanical, electrical, appreciation of both, especially in the modern day now we're moving into. But that really touched a little spark for me, just kept on going really. Definitely.
Abel. Yeah.
This thing about hands-on, if you look at most engineers in practice, they are what I would say desk-bound plus field visits. How does that play on your mind? Because you were hands-on, were you looking at being technicians or at the desk-bound engineers? What inspired you most?
For me, I would, as you say, I'm more desk-bound. So although I've worked on projects where what I'm working on is kind of right outside the door, I'm usually sat writing reports and that kind of thing. It's more that appreciation that it's not a theoretical kind of study that I'm doing. It's a real thing that I can go and look and see they're building that machinery, or you know, you've got to make sure the floor's level so your machine sits flat on it, and therefore you can do what you need to do with it. It's more that kind of, I suppose, application of knowledge as opposed to actually going out and doing the hands-on kind of technician work for me. And
yeah, I mean, for me, I've had different experience. I've been on site quite a lot. To active commissioning on site, actually putting equipment in, working in a different country, but still being office bound, but still it's different. It's, you know, get appreciation of culture, is that sort of side. I'll touch base on that later, but it is mostly that desk space, but at the same time, if you're designing, you've got to go on site, you've got to get appreciation, you've got to work there to understand the facility. People who work on facility know that day in, day out. You know, you've got to interact with them, apply it to, obviously, you get to know the equipment, your theory, because that changes. I mean, if you're completely desk bound, it is completely useless when you're on site if you're going to be installing anything, because you don't get full understanding of the nature or what's happening. And that. But it does depend on what area it's in.
Now, I know the two of you haven't yet joined the workforce, but you possibly had little experiences of or insights into kind of engineering. But so have you got a preference as to whether you want to be a bit more hands-on when you join the workforce, or do you see yourself as possibly more on the kind of sorry, dry voice, dry throat? Do you see yourself more being a bit more desk-bound, or have you no fixed idea or preference at this point in time?
I hate to be desk-bound. I think part of what pushed me into doing process engineering is the fact that I'm able to do jobs on site and be able to go out, and all the experience I've had, when you're sitting in your office, you can see what you're working on and you can hear it, and it's always there. And having the opportunities to be able to go out on site and be more physically interactive with the work you're doing is definitely something that pushed me into doing process engineering. And obviously you're going to have days or weeks where you sit in the office, but I would definitely hate to have a completely office-bound job, personally.
for me, it's the other way around.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I would like to be this bound because I think it offers me the time and possibility to actually think things through and to concentrate on my work better just by working on my computer.
Graham, did you want to come in now? Feel free, because I'm going to move the thing
I'm
forward.
interested in this family thing. It's
Yeah,
really,
yeah, no,
we're
sure.
really
Just let's stick
looking
with that. But
if we get families encouraging people to go into engineering, but it's not quite the way I would expect you to get your information. I would expect a bit more from careers advice and guidance, and I know it doesn't exist, but I'm just interested. What did you get from the teachers, and did you get any pressure to take a more conventional route rather than the workplace route? So two questions: what advice did you get? Two, did you guys get pressure?
Okay. Start with two of you first.
I think because I was quite focused on chemical engineering, even in sixth form, so I didn't really get much advice in sixth form about the other routes to take, because I'm not sure how apprenticeships completely work, but I don't think there's many apprenticeships you can do in chemical engineering. So I didn't really get much chance to explore that side of things, but I don't think there was as much advice as I could have been given at the time.
Yeah, for me it's the same. In my home country, it's.
And your home country is just so.
Oh yeah, it's Romania. In my home country, it's pretty common to follow a career at university and not an apprenticeship. So I didn't even get the chance to take on an apprenticeship. And I believe that computer science is a field that can be applied in a lot of other subjects. And I wanted to study at university because I wanted to have the freedom to explore all these subjects.
For me, so as a kind of extra bit, I went to an all-girls school, so they weren't very focused on kind of pushing engineering as a subject.
So we hear too often, yeah.
So they didn't offer kind of an engineering A level or anything like that. But I kind of had the usual careers advice in here's your leaflets for universities. At that time, apprenticeships weren't really being pushed either, so they kind of really picked up in the last few years, definitely, but particularly when I was looking, there weren't a lot out there. And I remember looking myself, and kind of you had the military services apprenticeships and programs with them, and then that was pretty much the extent of it. So for me, it was kind of university was the main option if I wanted to carry on into that industry.
I mean, I didn't have any career advice at all. It was all useless, in my opinion. That was. To be fair, it was someone who has come from a background of whatever it was to them, but didn't know anything else out of that scope. So I ignored it. But in terms of, it was more actually because I picked on my grandfather. I didn't know my grandfather did mechanical engineering until I started my apprenticeship, which is quite interesting. As well as I didn't know he was a very, very good drawer. He was very, not a secretive guy, but quite settled. But it was the fact he went to university at 40, I thought, if he can do that, then I'm sure that I can at least start that progression, or try to at least. But as I said, I did an apprenticeship route because I'm originally from York, so there's a big Nestle facility there. It's a big, huge apprenticeship base. There's a lot of network rail. So there's a lot of apprenticeship industries around that area that push that more than the academic side, especially when it's in engineering, because there's not as many universities around York that special, apart from Leeds, but you've got Sheffield, and where they really specialise in certain engineering aspects. And I thought, well, and for me personally, if I went to university, I wouldn't be here to do. I just couldn't properly focus. I prefer the practical aspect, being on site, earning while learning, and it was more beneficial in my head to do that. My granddad did an apprenticeship, so again, that's the way he took it, and he loved it. So I kind of took his advice really. I thought, right, I'll go with that.
Right, well, I'm going to bring you on a little bit then, okay? Fascinating stories about why you chose engineering, different kinds of influences on you and so forth. So let's now move into the education part of the picture. So I'm going to prepare you with the question that's coming in a minute, okay? Why UCL and UCL engineering? And then we'll get into, after that, what's good and exciting about the engineering programme and what may be less exciting and why. And conversely, same question for yourself, but for the apprenticeship, I think we can do the same question.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, yeah, but you know, because you can do it around the relationship between the formal taught part and the on the job.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so why UCL? That's where
So-
shame John isn't here.
When I looked around, UCL was the first I heard about the integrated engineering program, and the year I'm in is the first year that took it. And the idea of having a degree that's less so theoretical and exam based and having more opportunities of projects and effectively more coursework was something that appealed to me. And the difference between looking at the course they did here and like a typical chemical engineering course was what pushed me towards applying to UCL.
So it was by coming to visit.
Yeah,
So you had the aspiration to come to UCL.
so I did look around all the London universities for
Right,
chemical
okay.
engineering.
Yeah.
But it was this one that more caught my attention than the others.
Okay, right. And from Romania, UCL.
Well, I chose UCL, the integrated engineering program at UCL because it offers a combination of theory and practice, and I was used to the theory part, but we didn't get much practice in high school. So yeah, that was the main reason, and of course the academic records of UCL.
Right. Abel, can I bring you in here? Because there'll be a lot of people in the audience, I suspect, who don't know about the structure of the UCL degrees, the engineering degrees. Could you just say a few words about the specialisms and the integrated engineering project so they just get it, everyone just get a kind of working sense of how it hangs together?
Okay. Firstly, Christian Arnold do much better than me, but I'll try. First, we still have our separate degrees, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, and so on. What we have put in are what we call cross-cutting activities, like common subjects like mathematics. I think 7 departments or 6 departments do the same program. We also have introduced design-based learning, design projects, so we have challenges course. We also have a skills program which enables students to do work across departments and in teams within their own course. Then, in addition, which we adopted from the civil engineering department, is what we call scenarios. These are 1 week intensive programs. So, by the end of second year, they would have done 6 of them, quite challenging, but I think useful in the end, where they actually design, build something, test in teams, and then it is assessed then. And finally, at the end of second year, with a huge thing we call How to Change the World, huge multidisciplinary project, which we throw every student into it.
That was lovely, thank you very much. Can I just actually ask, anybody in the audience like to ask Abel any further questions so that he clarifies a little bit more? Do you need a little bit more detail, or was that sufficient? Well done. Okay, so that's great. So you can kind of get a sense then that, because I think what I'm trying to pull out, we'll do the contrast in a moment, is that people tend to say, oh, you know, engineering in an elite university like UCL must be like this, and maybe what some of you are finding, well, it's not, because although Anna and Chris have talked about their specialism, but Abel's just described actually how the specialism is embedded in a bunch of other stuff that happens. So things that people might have heard about, you know, very common topics like, you know, teamwork, which everyone just mentioned, to employability skills and so on and so forth. They're all there, but they're actually there within a degree that's still got a disciplinary base. It's not that it's actually, they're not kind of separate. They're actually, hence the notion of the integrated engineering program, actually bring things together. Yes.
I do have a question actually. About entry point. You talk about how everything is cross and joined together. How about entry point criteria? Do you presumably, I remember with civil engineering at some point some requirement for the A-level maths were dropped, or you played around, experimented a bit with the entry requirement.
Right. Yes. Do you want to say?
I think for the past 8 or so years, civil engineering have not required mathematics at entry point. So
still the case, yeah.
So when you look at our first year mathematics, it's more, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more a bit between just beyond A level. So it starts from AS to just beyond A level. So I think it provides sufficient grounding for the students to, we have not had A-level mathematics to join in. And also we combine it with a little bit of programming. The programming content is increasing year by year because of demand, but it's now mathematics plus MATLAB programming plus a bit of Excel spreadsheets, looking at data, engineering data, that kind of thing. So it's very applied mathematics. So that's the biggest move. We've moved away from the theoretical hardcore stuff to something which is much more applied.
So this is not a celebration of UCL's Faculty of Engineering, it's just to try to illustrate how when students make choices, they look at something and they can see themselves. And I think Chris put it quite nicely, like compared with the other very prestigious universities in London who may be offering engineering, what he could do was see himself in the character of this degree and the culture of working of this degree compared with somewhere else. Okay, which is part of the learning journey, which is actually, I think, often lost sight of. All too often what happens is people just talk about, what are the points you have to get in? What are the destinations are? Which of course both can be important, but it's actually what happens while you're there and how you feel your identity and expertise is kind of being built or being changed in the process. Okay, let's now turn. Not I twist, but turn to the two of you. So starting first of all, then Megan, which university did you go to?
The University of Bath.
To Bath, right? Okay. And is their structure of their degree different in any kind of way from what you've just heard from about UCL?
I'd say it was. So I also did a sandwich.
Right. Yes.
Degree.
Yes,
so
absolutely,
I did 2 years in education, then a year in industry placement, and then 2 final years. And the 2 final years were structured quite differently. So in the first semester, so it was a semester-based program. So in the first semester, it was your kind of core learning, your units, and you could choose a few optional modules so you could kind of direct it. And then in your second semester it was purely working on a group project. So you didn't do any learning at all, you were just working as a group, and that was your other kind
Well, you may have been learning, but
exactly,
another kind of way.
Not exams. And
not exams, not assessed in that conventional way, Which is interesting that then learning becomes conflated with assessment, actually, whereas learning is actually not. But that's what universities do, of course, we have to assess. Okay.
Exactly, and then it was the same for the final year, so you did your kind of modules in your first semester and then a individual project in your second semester.
Right, okay.
So it was structured quite differently.
Yeah, so you've got two different models in higher education, but in a sense, not that, maybe they're different but in terms of design, but actually the principle about the integration, the theory and the practice, I think it comes through from both of them. Phil?
Just, Megan, can you just expand on the type of projects that you were doing and sort of any case studies, but were they how much were they kind of based on real life problems or state-of-the-art things that are going on in the industry, or were they quite theoretical?
There was a real mix. So things like Form Year Student, people would sometimes do that as a project, and there was the equivalent for us a manned submarine and a UAV. So people did those kind of ones. So big university competitions. Some of them were very theoretical. I decided to go a different way, so my university also offered the opportunity to do a project with a company. So following on from my placement year, while I was there, I said to my company, I could do it was kind of 4 or 5 month project with you next year. Is there anything that you kind of need studying which you kind of can't do with your own people? So I went in and worked with the company there and did a project on condition-based maintenance, which might not sound massively exciting, but it was a real-life application. Great. And it was working with a company all the time and getting, it wasn't just a study and you handed it in at the end. Never seemed the light of day. It was a real, real hands-on engineering, so it was good from that perspective.
Can I let Chris come in, or was your question direct to Megan?
It's direct to Megan.
Oh, right, fine.
Which you sort of half answered, because you mentioned this sandwich model 2 years out in industry 2 years back, and I was thinking, well, how did you feel about going back into formal academia
That's a good point.
after your middle, and you've sort of answered it because you escaped, didn't you, into a project. So obviously, you know, but at some point you have to come back to the rigours of study and so forth. How did you find that, having been out in the real thing?
I think it is a massive adjustment. I found it more of an adjustment to come back to university than it was to go out to work. And you get used to that kind of, you know, 37-ish hours a week, and when you go home, that's your time off. Whereas when you go back to uni, you're like, I'll carry on doing that. And it gets to the evening and you're like, hey, but I've got all this coursework to do and I've got to study for this exam and everything else. So it's quite difficult to adjust to that, I found. And I think as well, probably because some unis do it where you do 3 years and then a year out and then your final master's year. And I think that probably might work a bit better, because coming back and still knowing you've got 2 years to go is quite a while. Whereas if, you know, you do the 3 years and then you're just going back and doing your master's year, it probably works a little bit better to kind of get back into that routine. And as you say, I then escaped the last 6 months anyway. So
Well, it's a really kind of it's an obvious thought that actually, compared with a degree that's structured where it's just the masters at the end, maybe it's actually easier to manage. I haven't looked at engineering like that, but I've looked at pharmacy, which is all structured like that, okay, and where the placement year and then they go to the final year for the MA. And actually, when you talk to the pharmacy students and you talk to also the pharmacy departments, what they tend to tell you is actually the students have just as many problems, because basically you've still got 2 years to go, so you still see it as a journey. What happens all too often, I'm told, in the pharmacy, people doing pharmacy degrees, is that they see that final year as something that they've just got to get through as quickly as possible to get back. because most people who study pharmacy don't become research pharmacists. It's something like about 90% of the students, undergraduate pharmacists, go and become either a pharmacist in what we'd see as a kind of retail setting in the high street or a supermarket, or actually in a hospital. But the recruitment from pharmacy degrees into research pharmacy is quite small in the UK. It's different in other countries. So it's amazing actually how you think the pattern will be better, but often it isn't. It's just a different experience. But anyway, Chris, how about yours?
Right. So I mean, mine was different because it was on an apprenticeship framework, where degree apprenticeship framework. You 1 day a week out to do your degree, 4 days at work, and.
And when were you going to do the degree?
Sorry, so it's at Plymouth University, but at City of Bristol College, because it's like a partnership they had.
Right.
So obviously saved the travel from Plymouth to Bristol. And you find that a lot in most cases in the UK, that we have apprentices with universities, but they're an academic college due to mostly areas where people live. And it was, I'd say, 1 day a week I would study and 4 days a week working. And it was the right balance for me. But it wasn't easy, you know, and that's the thing. And I always say this to anyone who's looking to do an apprenticeship, is that just take a step back and just understand how much work that is. It's a case of, you're going to work for, we're on 40-hour week, so 32 hours, and then 8 hours outside for 1 day a week, plus studying after work. You know, it's quite a lot. It's quite intense. However, I don't have that degree debt under my belt anymore, you know, and at the same time I've got a lot of experience I've gained from working with people who've been in the company 30, 40 years. And that's something you can't buy, no matter what. And it's also a great case that if there's something I was really struggling with, can easily just say, do you have a few minutes to go over this or something? So, and I expect if you needed support, it was a lot easier from someone who's already done it before. But I mean, apprenticeships in general now, degree apprenticeships, it's always a case where it's part-time, or some universities do it, I know, quite rapid studying as well. But it's a great benefit. It really is, to get that 50-50 split of both studying and experience. And actually find is the experience is obviously the most important part. I learned far more while I was on the job than obviously the studying, but the studying is just the foundation of where to apply to. But the means of it was actually from being in work and applying it and learning and making a mistake and having to do it out again, but actually having support and showing how to do it and then doing my own further way. So.
Okay, so I'm going to ask everybody the same question now. There's two parts to the question, okay? So it's in the university, and it's in your case the university and the work. But I'd like you, if you wouldn't mind, to focus on the study bit, okay, rather than actually the workplace. I'll give you a chance to do that in a moment, okay, just for the sake of comparison with everybody else. Okay, so what's the most exciting or interesting, but what's the most frustrating part about study? Okay, and feel free to be as specific as you want to. If that would actually help, kind of, you might pin it down a little. Okay.
I think probably my favourite part of studying has been these scenario weeks, which are just 1 week projects, and you get put in a random group, and you don't have lectures for this week, and you just have 4 days to do a project, and then on Friday you hand a report presentation. So it's definitely the most real life application that you can see yourself doing. So that's been my favourite part of studying. The most frustrating part, don't know really, just having to study. No, doing exams is tough obviously, but I thought, like, especially doing masters, 4 years is a long time to be slogging out education, but I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Okay, well, it's close.
I think the most exciting part was having projects with companies. So I'm at the end of my 2nd year, and I already had 2 projects in teams with companies. And I think that's where I learned most, because that's what I had most practice. The frustrating part is probably scenario weeks, because it's a lot of work in just 4 days. So, yeah.
That's the fun of it, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but that's really interesting that you actually then have chosen the kind of the most exciting, most frustrating. So the conundrum is always there for the educator. How do you design with variety to actually engage everybody? Okay, and what's going to happen is that really good students are going to form different views about the very same activity, but you're still going to have to go through them. Okay. Right. Anyway, right, over to the 2 of you. So Megan. Exciting, challenging, and frustrating in Bath.
Yeah. I would say it's kind of module building on top of other modules. So kind of our first year was quite very, they want to get you to the same level in a wide breadth of subjects. And then after that you start building on those. So you'd hear something, one lecture that links back to kind of your maths first year module, and you go, oh yeah, I remember that. And it's those kind of links that you start forming, and then when you're doing kind of the practical, so we did, building robots and that kind of thing. So you kind of going back continually to what you've learned before and building on that and developing it, and working with other people to kind of bounce ideas and off each other and say, oh, yeah, you did that. Why did you do that? Has that worked? Oh, I'll give this a go. And it's that kind of developing your own knowledge, I suppose, and understanding. In terms of the most frustrating, it's probably, as with any course, you're going to end up doing parts that you don't enjoy as much, and the fact that you've probably got to do them, so you've got to have that basic knowledge to then help you, but you don't necessarily enjoy that, or it's not taught in the way you appreciate or anything like that, so it's probably that frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, picking up something from Megan just said then, in terms of actually the way it's been taught, I found if it's a subject I really didn't like and it's been taught that a way it wasn't useful for me, I really didn't enjoy it and found it quite frustrating. Where if it was explained to me a little bit easier or a way I understood, then suddenly I'd like it. It's just the way people learn. I think the one thing I really enjoyed though is actually what I've learned in the first stage of the degree, and actually applying it to the project or into work, and actually seeing it work, seeing it, making it, what I've taken, and actually use it, and using it rightly and correctly. And for me, that was a key aspect for my learning.
Can I ask the 2 of you just to be a little bit more precise about what doesn't, when you say taught in the way that we don't like or don't appreciate, just describe what that teaching is. What's the distinctive feature of it, and why is it a problem for you?
I had quite a lot. My lectures kind of fall into a few different ones, like kind of chalk and talk. I quite like that because you have to pay attention. You have to be kind of focused on what they're talking about. Ones where it's kind of PowerPoints, and you don't need to take notes necessarily. I find it a lot more difficult to engage with those kind of things because it's very you know, it's in front of you, and if it's not a very engaging lecture, you won't get stuff.
Right, okay, that's a really good example. You'll see how we'll use that in a moment. And Chris?
Right.
Sorry,
It's a
right,
case
sorry.
of that. I don't know, the opposite a little bit, but not just presentation. I can't just sit and watch presentation. It's applying. So like mechanical engineering, doing maths and mechanical engineering, it's always pure maths you learn. I wasn't taught it towards a mechanical situation or problem, should we say. It was just pure maths because the lecturer I had was a background as a computer scientist, and they were kind of going on that sort of area compared to some mechanical engineering which I have more understand towards, or what I'm going to use it and work towards with mechanical principles. So we're saying, so I think it was more the way it was taught by the individual in the subject for me.
I'm going to bring the audience in now. Do the comments that have just been expressed surprise you that what was referred to as the chalk and talk was seen as good and the PowerPoint not, and vice versa? What about, because some of you may be, for all I know, teaching or interested in teaching because you've come for this evening. So anybody got any response to the descriptions that Megan and sorry, Ryan have just offered?
There's an interesting sort of normal practice in teaching, which is you do the theory first and then you put it into practice. But what Ryan's described is a much more elegant model where you sort of blunder around in reality, doing things, and then go in and find out that's why it worked, which is more about interaction. And I think with chalk and talk, you have to have interactions, don't you? Whereas a PowerPoint, it's very easy to glaze.
Yeah.
I often do.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, PowerPoints are just, well, they're just, it's a visual representation. It's down to the lecturer to talk, or whoever's teaching to give them explanations, all that. And sometimes if they're not good at it, or sometimes don't have the right ways for people to learn from that, then obviously it's very take it yourself. But obviously, you know, take away your self-study and find out the key aspects. And that's when, if you enjoy engineering, that's what you want to do. That's where you go off and you say, oh yeah, I understand that now. Yeah, no problem.
I'm sure there's some other students here in the audience. Okay, so come on, there's an opportunity for you to comment as well. Yeah, yes, come on.
A lot of lectures nowadays get recorded and made available online, like whatever internet the university uses. But I really agree with the fact that you do need to engage with the lecture to actually get anything from it.
Right.
So, if you can have video up on your laptop while you're watching YouTube or something, do you think it's actually going to be as effective? Do you think that lectures should continue in reality as they are, as you have them, with the videos available as like extra material, or do you think eventually it might just be enough to have recorded lectures on the lectures?
Okay, you've raised a couple of interesting questions there. We'll get some more people in because, well, come on, you wanted to say something?
I mean, I'm still at sixth form,
Yeah.
so it's obviously very interactive learning environment. We do a lot of like teacher talking. We write things down. Like I know, especially in physics, physics loads of questions to follow. Like after with the application of the theory, then the application. Sorry, the theory, then the application of it. Whereas in like maths and stuff, we have it very much like as I think Mel was saying with that, like with the, or you were saying, with the like doing a question and then seeing, like this is why it works, or like practicing a principle and then finding out why it's true.
I mean, I've got a kind of a question to people, but most of the teachers I've had that I've learnt a lot from are really engaged, and it's more on the A levels and a few in my degree were very eccentric type of characters. But to the point where you can see they loved what they were talking about and would have no problem explaining it into great depths, or you wanted to know about something specific, or they would heavily engage in your topic that was nothing to do with whatever you do, but you know they know about it. And that's for me what I found that engaging part was more on the individual, and maybe how eccentric they were, but that's why I kind of went on and thought, yeah, I now agree with it more.
Can I just ask the two of you, did you have similar experiences with the chalk and talk and the PowerPoints, or very different feelings?
I think it's largely dependent on the lecturer and how well they engage with the students, and there are some that obviously stand there and talk at you, and then there's others that talk to you and with you. Especially in terms of recorded lectures, I know that the lectures that engage with you I don't really use the recorded lectures that much. I use them more like as revision. If you miss something, you can go back and watch it and see if he mentions it. Whereas the ones that just sit there and read off the slides, you don't even need the recorded lecture because you can just read them yourself. But it does massively depend on the lecturer and how engaged they are with you. And again, I think the passion does come into it. You can tell the lecturers who are interested in what they do, and the research they're doing is based on the theory they're teaching you. So it does depend a lot on the lecturer, really.
Yep, same. I think it depends on the subject and the lecturer. Most of my lectures are based on PowerPoint slides, and I don't really like that. I think it's quite easy to lose your concentration. So I prefer a teacher who actually engages in the discussion and who actually ask questions and pay attention to the questions that the students have.
And just coming back to your, the kind of almost the rhetorical question that you floated, but I think it's a really important one because you'll hear it from policymakers, you'll hear it from some of the IT zealots. I don't mean people in university departments, but like out there in the world saying, well, we don't need to come into a physical setting to have learning. You just have it online and just in time when you want it. But actually, what you're hearing is another side to that story. That actually it is about the passion from the individual. That's part of the teaching experience because that communicates or helps communicate an interest and sustain an interest in actually what's being discussed. And so it's not to sort of say one, not the other, but actually it's about in combination and in different kind of ways. And I certainly understand the point about the revision. I mean, I think that's, if I go back to when I was a student, that was what was missing. Because if you did lose your concentration for 10 minutes, and when it came to the statistics lecturer who did do chalk and talk, okay, I most definitely did, okay, but it was very difficult to do the revision. Which possibly accounts for why I didn't do the quants in the sociology degree and I did the qualitative side instead. But anyway, that's a bit too much of me. Right, okay, so that's really interesting. Okay, so let's move on to thinking about work. And the two of you are still in university. So my question is going to be, have you given any thought to what kind of engineering area? Is it going to be directly the one you're studying and what kind of company you might like to work for? The same question, because you've already made that decision, what led you to make that decision? Okay. Now this is where Drew... Sorry, Ryan and Megan, I'm really losing my voice this evening, get to talk a little bit about why they chose Atkins, so their employer, and their Atkins representative can learn a lot from this. Okay, but to start with the two of you first. So have you thought about where to go and...
So I definitely want to go into process engineering. But I know that lots of people on my course are going into finance and banking side of things, especially when you're based in London with, obviously it's the big banking city in the country. But I'm definitely focused on process engineering. But the industry-wise, don't really have a preference at the moment. There's loads of stuff out there, just see what comes along.
But how would you do the seeing what comes along? I mean, are you going to wait till the end of your time when you graduate and then look, or are you going to start looking in?
No, so we've been applying since August, really, when the first applications come out.
Okay.
But all the big companies, oil companies like BP and Exxon, they released their applications really early because they have so many applicants.
Right.
So even since the middle of last year, really, we've been thinking about what you want to do and where you want to go into, especially in terms of summer placements and internships. You have to start thinking like end of first year, really, of where you want to start looking into.
Right.
I haven't made my decision yet. Third year is the year where you chose most of the modules, so that's where I'll probably get more insight in. But yeah, currently I'm still exploring all the fields that I can apply computer science in.
Okay. So if I understood you, you're saying because the way the third year is structured, you get to choose more modules. It's the act of being able to choose the modules that you think will be helpful in terms of then giving you some clues as to what you might like to do there afterwards.
Yeah, because it it depends on the program, but in my program, the 4-year program, you choose most of the modules, and yeah, I think it's easier to actually understand what you like most.
Okay. Right.
So I did a year in industry placement with a different company. I liked the industry that it was in, but I didn't want to work for that particular company. And then when I was probably just before I started my final year, I was looking around at other companies, and I really liked the idea of consultancy. I wanted to be able to work on different projects, different areas. I didn't like the idea of just being in one particular company and working with them for 2.5, 3 years on the grad scheme, and then kind of carrying on my career like that. I wanted that variety. So for me, consultancy offered that. Atkins specifically, if I'm completely honest, I looked at the Times top 200 companies and went through and went, no, well maybe, no. And went through like that, and then investigated the ones I was interested in.
Absolutely nothing wrong with doing that, absolutely sure.
There's a lot to choose from, and I found it really difficult to know where I wanted to go. My degree was, I did mechanical and electrical engineering, so it was really broad. So you could go into pretty much anything, as a lot of my friends did who did my degree. People have gone into all sorts of different companies. So for me, it was an easy way to start narrowing it down a little bit. And then I did mechanical and electrical engineering at uni, and then I come into Atkins as a systems engineer, which I suppose broadly follows the same idea of kind of thinking broader and narrowing it down. And the benefit of work I've done so far is it's been very varied in what I've done. So I've done mechanical design type stuff, I've done calculations, I've done systems engineering, I've done project management. So I've got that kind of varied experience and lots of different things throughout my 2.5 years so far.
Well, mine was a little bit different from obviously trying to look for an apprenticeship in whatever company's applying, as either mechanical, electrical, or kind of a technician role or things like that. And in York, actually, I applied for 5 apprenticeships, and I was grateful to get acceptance for all 5, and I had to pick. And they're all different. I had one at like a manufacturing company, I had one at a machine shop, I had one at a major rail company, and one at a major aeronautical company, and there was Atkins. And when it was, I didn't actually know Atkins until I first saw the advertisement of mechanical engineers based in Bristol. And as soon as I just walk around York and go, oh, Atkins. And then suddenly I started noticing Atkins everywhere. And I thought, oh, this is these guys are everywhere, so I've not really picked it up. But it's more a case that when I looked at Atkins and what they did a whole broad range of projects, instead of being stuck at one facility doing the same job in a sense, and not really having much flexibility in that particular companies I was looking at. That's what I wanted, the range of different work and aspects, not working on the same thing. And now I've been at Atkins coming up 5 years. I've worked at loads of different, so I'm based in an energy department, and I've been on site. I've worked between the UK and France for a year. I've done a huge range of projects, loads of mechanical engineering, but actually now I'm starting to do my own little project in machine learning capabilities. So completely different, having the option to do that and a company that can do that. It's quite remarkable, yeah.
Great. Well, I was going to actually say, Graham, to you and Phil, actually, as 2 people who are engineers, who've been in the field of engineering for donkey's years, recruited and supported the development. Does anything that you've heard about the choice surprise you? But that may be the kind of question you're going to ask. But if not, just ask your question anyway, but then maybe come back to mine.
It's interesting. You mentioned people going to Spanky, but you didn't work route. You didn't talk about money. I had a really interesting discussion with Second Sealord, who's into recruiting higher apprentices or degree apprentices. And they offer 18,000 a year to start on a higher apprentices. At Rolls-Royce, it's 12. We don't have any problems. So I used to work at Rolls-Royce. We didn't have any problem recruiting. The Royal Navy does have a problem recruiting, that's why it's 18,000. So how much influence does... Oh, by the way, they're placing them at 30,000 as well at the end of their apprenticeship. So how much influence does that sort of have on those decisions? Money,
For me,
dirty stuff.
For me, both the apprenticeship route was led on money, to not having the debt, because it's for how much it, when I was at college to then it went up massively, was a big game changer. I was like, well, that's a lot of debt, and to the point where if I took on that debt, would I be successful? And for me, with my academic level thinking, and I wasn't 100%, and I wasn't going to gamble on it, and then looking at how people have done in apprenticeships, and they have a lot more money. Because they have no debt, but the second thing is that their experience earlier in the workplace compared to going to doing a degree in a graduate, they were at the workplace longer, get that more experience, and if any risk came involved, that it seemed to de-risk them slightly, and that was the case in kind of the older term society.
Go back to your 5 companies. Did money play a part at all? What they were paying?
The company which was based most of me was paid the most,
yeah.
And I turned it down because I knew it'd be the same shift work, and I had an insight from a friend who started their apprenticeship there and loved it, but they finished on 40 grand a year actually. It was a 4-year apprenticeship,
yeah.
So you're pretty much laughing on money, to be fair, at such a young age. But you have to wait for someone to pass away or retire, and if you're waiting a long time, you're not going to go up, you're not going to develop in your career. You can easily just see yourself being stuck there, and if you're happy on that, that's fine. If you love doing that same job, great, there's nothing wrong with that. But me personally, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do bits and bobs because I could easily get bored.
So I had 3 job offers, and I was financially worse off with Atkins out of the 3, but within a few thousand. It didn't sway my opinion, but I think if it had been a substantial difference, that would have made me second think. You know, you're coming out with quite a lot of student debt, it's your first time earning money, it's going to play a part, but if it's within a few thousand, you know, it's maybe £100 a month, it's not significant.
And will money play a part with either of you too?
Well, for me, not yet. I haven't actually think about it that much, but I think it's more important to find something, to find a job that you feel comfortable at with the work you do, and to actually like it, even if you get paid less than other companies.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather have a job that I enjoy and get paid less. But I mean, to an extent, a couple of thousand a year, then you're going to go with the company you prefer. But if somebody's offering another 20k, then you're going to have to think about the situation. But yeah, I'd rather have a job that I enjoy.
It's really, I think that's really interesting because that's what I was suggesting to the Apple. He's going on the wrong attraction. He's got great jobs, really exciting jobs on the 2 big carriers. He's only earning money, and the 4 of you are saying, well, it's a job really, isn't it?
I think if you go for a job for money as well, you're not going to perform as well as you would.
Exactly, yeah.
If you wanted to be there for less money. If you're only working somewhere because you're getting paid so much, then you're not going to perform as well. And I think it just comes down to that, really.
Can I ask a related question, which is how much visibility or awareness do you have of job opportunities at smaller companies? Because what happens is you have all the big companies who have the resources and can send out the applications early and can offer breadth of roles, and actually that is very attractive. And I did the same. I started with a large company, but have you had visibility of small companies? Because it is a struggle for them to recruit, and I'm not sure how to square that circle. But what's your experience?
So I have quite a lot because I have quite a lot of contact with the UCL careers team, and I know they try to source a lot of STEM companies, but obviously everyone applies to all the big companies because things like Grad Cracker, they have all of the jobs on there. But I think I'd actually prefer to work for a smaller company than a bigger company to start off with. I think it's much harder to get noticed when you work for a big company. So having the opportunities to work for a smaller company, I think, is not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think a lot of graduates are, I guess, a bit shy of working for a smaller company.
I think it's as Chris said, if you work for a big company, you don't get noticed. It's so easy, but for a small company, it's easier to actually get people to help you and to actually get work done. But I haven't actually worked, so
No.
I don't have much information to be honest.
And can I just ask the two of you to engage with that question in a slightly different way? Because you're at work at the moment Atkins is a big company, but does Atkins and the work you're doing with them, and do you get to work with SMEs at all?
I have.
And do you see any difference between the work that the engineers there are doing and that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, actually, Atkins now been taken over. We're now in an acquisition by S&C Lavery, which is a Canadian company. It's now 55,000, Phil? Yeah, about 55,000. So that's global, and it's opened a massive range of markets, so we're even bigger now. But on your point to small companies, yes, on per project. So, and you tend to, if you work with a client, they might have a particular supplier you have to go to, which are an SME. So you do work with them. It is all for me down to per projects. It's down to if you need an SME or not. And if it is, it tends to be, well for me it was more either manufacturing or it was a particular niche area that we needed to go to prior, because they've got the most experience or on the site or wherever we're working. But I have noticed that the SMEs I worked on either only had one apprentice or no apprentices compared to the big companies. And actually, just I'll touch base on that, is that my dad did an apprenticeship with a small company and he didn't finish the apprenticeship because they went bankrupt and didn't get to finish it. And my dad told me about it, said don't do what I did. So I took that route because of the risk of that. And I've had a friend that finished his apprenticeship, been working for the company, and they've gone bankrupt. And he was going to do his top up, and he can't now. So that was the only downside to that.
And similar experience really in picking up on something you were saying as well. So I've worked with SMEs on projects, but they're usually actually other small consultancies as opposed to kind of particular kind of companies supporting a particular part of the project. So other consultancies who either kind of special, so some of them they tend to take on kind of ex-military people and kind of focus on that and provide a particular service that way. But the same way you said about apprentices, I don't think I've met any graduates with any of those SMEs. So either it's just coincidence depending on the projects, or maybe they just don't take on as many, well obviously they don't take on as many, but maybe they, depending on what visibility they get at projects as well.
And they don't appear in the Times 100 list.
No. So that kind of suggests there might need to be another list. But Ines, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about the non-technical aspects of your learning pathways. How do you think you've been developing these non-technical skills or applying these technical skills in your learning journeys? And how do you think your current employer or future employers value this soft, transversal skills, the non-technical aspects?
Okay, well, there's clearly lots of that kind of development going on in the UCL programme. So what do you think about that?
I think that is something that this new IEP course has tried to focus on, which is why we've had a lot more group projects and this design and professional skills module, they call it, where you're taught these soft skills. And every interview I've been to, they always ask you these questions, and all the application processes you go to, you do have all these questions. Like, give me an example when you were a team leader. And so I do think it's important to have that in your university experience. And it is something I've done more of than I thought I would as well. I didn't think I'd have this many group projects. I think it's been quite good here, really.
Yep, same in computer science. I had a lot of group projects, and I think it really helped me for the future, because I got used to actually collaborating, and And I always felt encouraged to participate in presentations and to talk to people, and I think it really helps for future work.
And had that soft skill development, was that something that was talked about in Romania? Was it something that you knew you'd been picking up here, or was that something that was new to you when you arrived through the degree?
No. I had no idea that university would, that study at UCL would have so many teamwork projects and so many. I mean, not so many, but we had to. Projects with big companies, and no, actually I had no idea that we have so much practical.
Okay. And can I just add a dimension to the soft skill question, because the way Anish put it was like, are you developing them in university and then applying them at work, but because you're both at work, are you developing them further at work? So kind of how does that play out for you?
Yeah. So kind of the soft skills, it's again kind of the teamwork and those kind of things, but also I did a business module where we did kind of presentations almost every week. So you had to stand up in front of the class and talk about whatever subject you'd been learning that week. So those kind of things, I think, force you to develop those skills and also get you used to thinking in a different way. While being on the graduate scheme, you again get a lot of exposure to that kind of thing, and I've had lots of different training courses. So things covering business presentation skills, not so much teamwork issues, because you kind of do that every day anyway. You work in a team, no matter what you're working on. You're always reliant on other people. So there's kind of focused training sessions, but also a lot of it will be day-to-day work and developing those softer skills through that.
What I wanted to do is just to actually get you to clarify. When you said earlier on about a lot of the work can be desk-based, but it still is team-based.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not individualised. You can run away with the idea if it's desk-based, you're just working on your own, but you're still part of a team.
Yeah, so you'll either kind of, work on it. So, as for example, if you're working on a report, you'll then go and talk to other people and say, I've got to this point in my report, can I have your kind of expert advice? And then it'll go through reviews, or if you're doing calculations, you'll go and talk to, experts in that and say, this is how I think of approaching it. Is that the right way? Have I forgotten anything? Is this is this approach you'd use, or is there a better way of doing it? So it's kind of working by yourself, but it's pulling advice from other people, I suppose. Is a good way.
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely.
I think I've learned a lot actually of the soft skills in work, and it's more from experience than just error sometimes. But I've learned from both in Atkins, where we have a very open space. You can talk to very senior people, to your normal line manager with no problem at all. It's quite easy to talk to compared to other businesses actually. And I've been on secondments. I've been actually working within a client site for a number of years. And actually, by doing that, I worked in France 2 days a week and the UK 3 days a week. And you get to know culture difference as well. So that was quite a big part. Which I learnt a lot of. But it's the sort of things which don't teach you at university or at school, is that how to respond in an email, things like that, the way, the tone of the language.
Can I tell you that's important in universities? Not just companies.
And it is important though, it is important, because you could send an email in a certain tone that comes completely wrong way and you learn it, but that's the things that matters, the soft skills. Nowadays, technical writing, we do a training where we teach engineers how to technical write properly, how it should be, instead of how just you write normally and you learn. And it's amazing what you come through. So I started my degree course writing a report, and it was taking ages and ages to get to thousands, and now you can easily just smash out 30,000 technical report quite quickly, and that's come from development of certain skills and how to write that as well, which is quite important.
We're nearly at point of closure, so the opportunity, anybody in the audience has got a question they'd like to raise or an issue. Yes, Abel, you're first.
What I want to know is, because from you guys, Are there any subjects, modules you felt it was a waste of time,
Yeah.
or this one was absolutely necessary?
Yeah, so it's either the waste of time or the really really essential. Yeah, that's a really good question. So just a quick round. Anything that was a waste of been a waste of time, and anything that's really really necessary up to now.
I don't really think so, because anything, even though I thought a module, I know I'm not going to do it, there's going to be someone on the course who wants to work on what the module's on. Which could be considered an issue with university, which is you cover, the 100 different modules, but in your real life you're only going to use one. But you have to cover all of them at university. But I don't think there's been anything that no one is going to use.
Yeah, same. I think it depends on the person. I personally didn't find any subject useless. So yeah, I really think it depends.
Any different view? If it's the same, we'll just kind of see if there's anything else in the audience. But any different view about?
No, I'd agree with
You'd
that.
agree? Yeah. Okay. Right. Anybody else in the audience with a question? Yes.
Hi, I'm Brian Berry from Engineering UK. We have a programme called Tomorrow's Engineers, and we're trying to inspire young people to become engineers and find out more about modern engineering, what it's all about. And I was very interested to hear your views on when you got into engineering. You talked a lot about kind of sixth form study. At what point did you decide that engineering was for you, and what kind of influenced you besides the family piece? Was it the family piece solely, or was it something to do with the subjects you were studying at that time that made you feel you could become an engineer and you could think yourself into taking that role?
Just a quick answers from everybody. Okay.
It was more my hobby than anything.
Right.
That led it.
I really like maths and physics.
Okay. So, but applied, as you said earlier on.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for me the same. It was the subjects I studied in high school, maths and computer science.
Yeah, I think a bit of both, a mixture of what subjects I enjoyed and just enjoying doing practical things in life.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Anybody else from the audience at all? Right. Phil.
I'm just really interested to dig into perception of work, actually having a job, perception versus reality. So, what's if you think of what's the first thing that kind of comes into your mind about having a job in this industry? And if you on this side, if you guys can think, was there something that was completely different for you about the work, the experience of coming to work for real, once you were kind of doing a job? So perhaps on that side, what?
Yeah. So Anna and Chris first. Okay.
Well, I already feel like I'm bragging because I already mentioned 3 times the projects with companies, but I mostly imagine having an actual job like that because, Ryan said something about technical reports and emails, and we've already done that like a lot of times. We had a lot of reports to write and a lot of emails to write to our clients. So I already have an image in my mind, and I think that's it. That's
that's lovely. Thanks, because I've just been conscious of time. Okay, no, fine. Just get everybody in.
I think I do even have the view that I guess just the project-based work. I'm not so sure how the everyday life of work is going to be like, but I have the idea that all the projects you're going to do, but obviously you're not just going to be working on one project from January to August and then you start another one. So I think that link is missing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And
I'd agree with what Chris was saying. So it's that I definitely had that understanding of projects, but it's also, so I was on a project for a long time, but I wasn't kind of doing I was doing kind of project support role, and it was only after 6 months or so that I realised how much I'd gained, even though I was being kind of technically challenged. It was all that other things you learn, so how the project works, how people work, how, those interactions and that kind of broader space, I suppose, as opposed to kind of being the technical challenge that I was anticipating.
Mine was more on the realistic side of the money, where it's a business. So you can't do everything you want to do compared to a project. And for consultancy, work is up and down, as most industries. It's reality. You can't always be busy. You can't always, even though you want to do something, there's no money there in the pot to do it. And it's that reality between doing that at university and doing your dreams, and it's that R&D sort of phase, and really going to do what you want to do to actually reality and work that. Sometimes you can't do that because it's not financially viable.
I think what's really interesting, and because it's come out several times at earlier on points in the answers that everybody's given to the questions, is being able to see yourself in the work, and or which part of the work you want to see. So there's a lot of self-knowledge and self-awareness that you have to develop if you're going to go on a learning journey, and you kind of keep that going. In the sense, that's what Chris is saying now. He's on the working learning journey. The frustration about the fact that actually there isn't the budget to go and do something you might be quite keen to do, and actually you know that even the company's got the capability to do. Yes, feel free.
Kind of just again how you got into it, but where do you think the most support for your decisions into going into engineering came from?
Our greatest support.
Yeah, because it could be from a family, or it could be the university itself, it could be friends.
I think family, really.
Yeah, same family.
Yeah, same.
And I think Drew the same.
Family, yeah, it was definitely family. I had a few colleagues who I got on really well with, who taught me a lot. That would really support me actually in what I've done.
Right. Okay. Well, did you have a different? Did you expect a different answer?
Not really. It was more that kind of knowing that in the context of like, if I were trying to encourage someone to go into it, like, who are all the best group people?
Yeah,
Their
yeah.
parents would say, it's got to come from you, or their brother or sister, it's got to come from you. Because if you try to convince someone of a few points, it's like, oh, I can't do it, and then you try to say, well, yeah, you can, and here's why, that never works.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody here has had a very clear idea about why they wanted engineering. Arguably, there could have been another 4 students in the same schools they went to who could have been attracted to engineering, but because they couldn't see it in quite the same way, then choose something else. And that's where it does come back to the careers question that got raised. If the careers education doesn't actually help people think around what this profession of engineering, which is changing dramatically in all kinds of exciting, interesting, intriguing ways, is about, and it keeps the image of the hard hat engineer, then it actually is just never going to actually convince people who might otherwise make the choice to do so. So there is a big issue. Well, as I'm sure you know, back in secondary ed, you know, to kind of get schools to think differently about. But I would say, by the way, it's not just that the profession of engineering. I think it's true actually about so many professions these days. They change so much, and new professions come on stream. And actually, why would we expect schools to automatically know that if they're not given some support themselves? Because most people turn to the experience of their own life, their immediate community, and use that as the yardstick for how they offer advice, which in a sense a lot of people have done here, and it's quite useful. But actually, if you're the person who's searching for something and that's actually not quite what you've got as part of the repertoire of the cultural capital, you know, then you're kind of at a disadvantage, you know, or maybe you missed something that you might actually have been really excited and interested in. But look, thank you all very much indeed. So, partly because I've said your name wrong twice at the very end, and nobody was actually bold enough to tell me. So we'll start with Ryan, thank you very much indeed. Megan, thank you very much. Anna, thank you very much. Chris, thank you very much. Big hand of applause. Right, Paula, would you like to encourage people to...
Yes,
there's some drinks and refreshments outside, so please make your way, okay? And you can all relax now, go, okay, but thank you all very much indeed, that was really great.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.